I don't know. Just one feeling. Well, I don't know. So jump. That was going to be a bad note. Spin around, fall back down. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, what was I doing? Welcome back. Monster Volume 3. Let's get right on into it, but really quick before we do that, I have an extra special shout out because this week I got 2 new patrons, and they are Justin Stewart and My Fivehead. Thank you guys so very much, and thank you to all my other patrons as well. As always, if you're interested in joining the Patreon, the link's always in the description below. Also, I'm getting kind of close to putting up a poll on the channel to see what I read after Berserk, and I think I've got it narrowed down, but I had to knock a couple things off the list that I really didn't want to, but that's coming up very, very soon. I know I said that the last video, though. Now this week we start off with a psychiatrist or psychologist, some doctor, interviewing a serial killer. And the first thing I thought when I saw this was, oh wow, we're introducing real life characters into this story. We're going to start mixing the story with reality by putting Ed Kemper directly into this, who is a real life serial killer. Because this is clearly Ed Kemper. And then we find out that it's not Ed Kemper, it's just some other guy. And clearly, he's based on him. There's no getting around it. He even has his, one of his victims' name is Kemp. Or Kemp, however that's said. Either way, they pretty much spell it out. Anyway, he's interviewing him, and he keeps asking him about all of his 11 murders, and he just keeps telling him, you should be asking me about the 12th murder. And the doctor just won't do it, because it's the one murder that doesn't fit the profile, so he's not interested in it. Also, Tenma shows up to ask this same doctor about advice on Johan, and he shows him some messages and notes from Johan. He's trying to get his interpretation on the situation that he's in, because these guys actually know each other from college. And after he comes to this guy, he immediately turns him into the police and sets him up. Thanks, buddy. Old friends. And then he goes off to investigate that 12th murder scene that the guy keeps telling him to look into. And then once he gets there, all of a sudden he puts everything together. He realizes that it doesn't fit the pattern because it wasn't really one of his murders. He was put up to it by Johan. He also realizes that this Johan and the guy doing all of this is also the same guy that Tenma was just asking about. So he puts his case together with Tenma's case at the same time and realizes he set Tenma up to be arrested by the cops, and now he kind of feels bad about that. So he's going to hurry up and go to where he set Tenma up to be arrested by the cops, and he's going to kind of intercept Tenma and give him a little bit of information, tell him get the heck out of here because the cops are going to arrest you. At the same time, he's going to drop him a theory on how Johan has killed all of his foster parents except for the most recent ones. So he assumes that he probably found his ideal family. This idea of Johan finding his ideal family will be mentioned a couple of times in this volume, and we never get to see him, and it's never confirmed. So I don't really know where this is going, but we're going to put a pin in it and keep that in mind, because who the hell are these twisted f***s? And next thing you know, we're going to hitchhike for a chapter. The end. Actually, that's kind of true. That really does kind of sum up the entire chapter. But it's one of those, dare I say, unimportant chapters in Monster that keep constantly popping up. Almost like a throwaway chapter, like it doesn't need to be there at all. And they always seem to have a doctor that he can relate to, or a cop that's suspicious of him and maybe figures him out by the end. Or some moral story that really overlaps with what we're reading in general. But to reduce these chapters down to unnecessary side tangents filled with plot conveniences and contrivances, which they kind of are, feels extremely unfair because they are so well written and they're just short enough that they never overstay their welcome, and I really enjoy reading them. And after the fact, I'm always happy that they were there, so I'm happy to have them. And at the end of the day, I really do feel like they add to the story in general. Anyway, now we're going to catch up with one of the guys who killed Nina's parents. And we find that he's struggling to start a new life over with a new wife and her kid. And ultimately we find out that he was just a detective who got into some really bad shit that he shouldn't have been into. And then that led him into being manipulated by Johan, which led him into killing Nina's parents, and on and on. He then comes home to find a dead man in his house, and Nina's there. And his bodyguard, Roberto, is missing. She accuses him of killing her parents. He accuses her of killing the dude in the house. She says, absolutely not. I didn't do that. Your dude Roberto did that. He doesn't believe her, of course. Who do you believe in this situation? I mean, Nina, of course, but he doesn't really know that yet. Anyway, Roberto shows up right as she's taking the guy away at gunpoint. They then drive out to the middle of nowhere, and the guy makes some kind of comment about not having a choice in killing her parents, which pisses her straight the fuck off. They pull the car over, get out, and she starts screaming like a crazy person at him. He then goes on to whine about how he finally understands because he just now has people in his life that he cares about. All in all, he's a pretty pathetic character, top to bottom. Right then, they get a phone call from Roberto, and he tells the guy, I don't remember his name, that he has his wife and kid captive, and he'll give them back if he just brings the briefcase back. So apparently Roberto's not a nice guy. Go figure. I also kind of forgot to mention the briefcase. There's an important briefcase in this situation. So they hurry up and they go rush him back because they're going to go save his wife and his kid. And Nina goes running to the next house and she's going to cover him from a distance, right, for him to go running inside and run straight into his wife and kid. And they're as happy as can be. They were never kidnapped at all. They were just out doing something. And Roberto is a liar. So he goes to confront Roberto, and Roberto takes the briefcase from him and says, "This never happened," and leaves. That's when we realized he had a team in the building waiting on Nina that kidnapped Nina and took her away. And the whole chapter ends with that cop guy just lounging by the pool with his family, smiling and laughing. Like, really, dude? You got yours, so we're just going to be happy? Nina, you are a very special kind of terrible person. Anyway, Nina is with Roberto's men, and they're getting ready to kill her when all of a sudden the men start dying because somebody's shooting them. And it's the cop guy. Oh, wow. I guess he's not such a terrible guy after all. But unfortunately now, the next thing we see is them in a car driving away quickly, and he's been shot, and he's bleeding out. And it legitimately turns into like this really sad scene as he's bleeding out, and you can tell that he's dying. And he says, "I promise to take the kid fishing tomorrow. I hope it's sunny." And I suddenly care about this complete trash master. And I suddenly care about this piece of trash. I don't know how Urasawa pulled that one off, but he did. This is the power of good storytelling, is what it is. Now, re-enter the BKA man. And he's off investigating a murder that has absolutely nothing to do with Tenma or Johan. But it so much resembles the murders that are going on right now with Johan and Tenma that people are starting to connect this one to those. The BKA man knows better. He can tell that they're not connected, but he's going to lean into and encourage these people to keep pushing this narrative and reporting on this being connected because he knows that it'll draw Tenma out, which it does. Also at this point, we get a much more in-depth explanation of his theory on Tenma being Johan and Johan being Tenma, and how when he's Tenma, he's a healer, and when he's Johan, he's a murderer. So he's in the same vein of thought as this multiple personalities as Tenma is, but he believes that Tenma is just one of the personalities. And I know I said in the last video that I'm not super keen on the whole multiple personalities angle of the manga that they're leaning into right now, and I'm still not. But if it were to be multiple personalities, I think this is by far the most fun route for it to go, that Johan is Tenma and Tenma is Johan. Now, I know that doesn't really work out logistically, and I can't see any way how they would ever make that work logistically. And it's a very almost cliche thing to do. I'm just saying, if the multiple personality thing turns out to be the actual way they go with this story, this would be the most fun version of it, in my opinion. I don't believe it, but it would be fun. Anyway, the BKA man shows up right as Tenma's investigating the scene, and it looks like they're going to finally have a little bit of a showdown when suddenly the real killer shows up, who's just kind of a putz that the BKA man's been bullying for about a chapter, and he shows up and stabs him. But the BKA man throws him to the ground and kneecaps him. So the guy starts to confess his crimes. And the BKA man says, "I'm not interested in you," and shoots him in the other leg. Like, damn, dude, take it easy. Wow. He might be the most intense character in the whole manga so far. Anyway, he's going to go chasing Tenma, and while he's chasing Tenma, he's going to collapse due to blood loss. And Tenma's going to pick him up and go to try and help him and save him because Tenma. This is ultimately going to end by him being handcuffed and held at gunpoint by the BKA man. They then get to have a proper face-to-face conversation. When the BKA man ultimately passes out, Tenma saves his life and drops him off at the hospital, where he wakes up looking very happy and says, "Chasing a criminal like Tenma is the best thing on earth." Now, enter the ex-girlfriend. And to be honest, I thought in the last volume that she hooked up with the BKA man and they were going to go running off to chase Tenma together, but clearly that didn't happen because he's off chasing Tenma, even having face-to-face conversations with him, and this chick's locked up in a drunk tank. Anyway, after getting out and realizing that her bag is missing, she then goes back to her hotel and gets thrown out of the hotel just to end up running into a man who has her bag and claims that they were together the night before. She left her bag behind. "By the way, my name's Roberto." Hey, I know that guy. So anyway, he takes her out, gets her drunk, and starts asking her a bunch of questions. She tells him all about Tenma and Johan and all of that. She even says that she saw Johan once. That one time that Tenma went and saw him in person at that parking garage looking thing, she was following Tenma the whole time and she ended up seeing Johan in person. Anyway, they ultimately end up going to bed together, and he eventually presses her, telling her the real reason that he's here is he wants the pictures that she had of Johan as a kid. And she says she wants information on Tenma. They ultimately come up to this uneasy agreement where he gives her the information as to where Tenma is. So where is Tenma? Well, he's at a crime boss's house doing some real black market doctor for hire stuff. Yeah, you know that job the Weasel Otto kind of wanted him to do like a long time ago? I guess we're doing that now. And the Weasel guy's actually there. So is Dieter. It's almost like a family reunion. Anyway, we're going to catch up with him right in the middle of a sit-down dinner where the crime boss is telling a story about this kid who started basically the largest underworld bank, then left it just to watch it collapse, and he used money and men like they were his toys. And he was doing this all at the ripe age of 15. Gee, I wonder who that could be. Right then, Roberto's going to send the ex-girlfriend up the side of a hill as either a pawn or a distraction. I think more like a pawn. I don't really know what his ultimate goal was he thought was going to happen here. But she kind of resists and changes her mind at the last second, and they kind of end up getting into a little fight, and she ends up getting shot, and then Dieter shows up, and now she's stuck with Dieter, and Dieter keeps promising her that Tenma's going to come and save her life, which, of course, if you're her, this probably sounds pretty crazy, and she doesn't believe him. But ultimately, she passes out right as Tenma gets there. Next thing we know, we literally see her sitting at the same dinner table they were all just sitting at, but now it's just her and the crime boss, and they're both all bandaged up because they've both been fixed up from Tenma, and it's just the two of them sitting there, and Tenma's long gone. And I'm not even gonna lie, this was one of my favorite panels in the entire volume this time. I literally laughed out loud looking at it. It was wonderful. Okay, now the last whole chunk of this book is going to be taken up with this back and forth between a young boy and an old man who pays the students there to read to him because he's blind and he can't read anymore. And the young man is actually this old wealthy man's son. Anyway, as a different person read to him every day of the week. This kid is the Tuesday boy, but there's also another kid, the Thursday boy, who also claims to be this guy's son. And the Tuesday boy is going to hook up with this girl, and they're going to go off investigating the other boy, trying to figure out who the Thursday boy is. And everything we learn and all the evidence points to the fact that he is actually Johan. And when they finally ultimately track him down, they enter his room, and he's hanged himself. So not Johan. but then we immediately get introduced to the Friday boy, Johann. And then we get this interesting tonal shift because we get a couple of chapters of Johann just being super nice to people. He listens to the boy's backstory and literally cries as the guy's telling it to him. He says he wants to make an international treaty for the proper treatment of children. What are you playing at here, Johann? Meanwhile, there's a private investigator that the old man hired to find out if the Thursday boy who claimed to be his son is really his son. But he learns that there was another boy with him as well. Meanwhile, Johann is telling the Tuesday boy where the old man likes to retreat, and the boy and the girl ultimately take him there, but it's no longer a beautiful forest like he remembers. Now it's under development, which the man can't see, of course, because he's blind. And right when they're about ready to tell him what has happened to his forest, Johann shows up and starts describing it like it's still beautiful, and there's a lake, and there's birds, and it's just the best ever. Even dropping an apple in his hand and having him eat this apple like he just plucked it off of a tree or something. What are you playing at, Johann? And then the last panel of the whole volume is that investigator guy saying, "Who is the other boy?" And this whole volume just continued to be absolute edge of your seat tension the whole time. I just love it. I just love the way it's written. It's really, really good. I do also want to point out that there's a lot of drama for drama's sake, and I'll probably have a lot to say about this either later on or just as the story goes on. There is a lot of plot conveniences and contrivances and, oh no, another detective entered the story, or oh no, it's a cop, or oh no, it's a doctor or an old buddy, or it's just, there's a lot of convenient things that happen one right after the other. And what if you would have went through this door instead of that door? Well, the story'd be over. Or if this person didn't pick up this exact thing at this exact time, the story would be over. So there's a lot of that going on. But the writing is just so good, and it's just so well structured and so well put together. It's really nice. And let's be honest, if we were going to sit here and nitpick the, oh no, there's a lot of drama for drama's sake or tension for tension's sake, we would have to throw out most dramatic television. That would be like saying Breaking Bad was a terrible show because there was just tension for tension's sake in it. And we all know that's not true. If I came at you with that, you'd be like, get the fuck out of here, quit ruining my shit. Anyway, I say it was very good. I'm having a wonderful time with it. I think it's about the same as the last volume, to be quite honest. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this the same rating I gave the last one, which is an 8. Now, as always, everybody, the link for my Patreon is in the description below. The link for the Discord's in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.